Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye is at the Hedberg Public Library in Janesville, interviewing candidates in the 2014 elections. We're interviewing Austin Scieszinski of Janesville. He's a Democratic candidate in the 15th Senate District. Austin, welcome to Wisconsin Eye.
Thanks for having me.
Just a programming note, Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. Give us a short version of your bio. You've been working in the Capitol as an aide to Senator Cullen?
Yeah, so my background is I'm from Janesville, born and raised, and I went to Craig High, and then UW-Madison. I studied finance and accounting there, and while I was in Madison, I worked for Senator Cullen. I worked on finance and education matters for him. Before then, I had actually managed his state Senate campaign in 2010, and then when he made his foray into the gubernatorial recall, way back when, I managed that endeavor. But since then, I've worked for Target Corporation. I did strategic financial planning. And then I got called back to the farm, so to speak. I had to help out with my family's small business, which is apartment buildings. And we went through a refinancing, and we also had a fire, so I had to manage the reconstruction of a building. And so captained those two ships, but we're over those hurdles now, and here I am running for the state Senate.
What issues brought you into the 15th Senate District race?
Well, the issues that are important is it's just jobs. And we have to work to attract small businesses. That's the #1 thing. People are still suffering from the recession. The recession's long over for Wall Street. You know, they keep closing at record highs and record highs. And it's just not the case for the average person. They're still struggling to make ends meet, whether that's deciding if they're going to buy groceries or medication. And so I think we have to work to attract small businesses to our area. That's the #1 job creator. Since 2009, Wisconsin has lost more businesses than have been started. So we're hemorrhaging small businesses, which are job creators. We have to work to attract those, to encourage startups, and I call it betting on Wisconsin. I think we have to set up zones of startup zones that can help facilitate startups to grow and start businesses. And then also, I think you have to raise the minimum wage. I think that's crucial. Inflation has gone up in 5 years since the last time it was raised. Prices are already up, but people's incomes are not up. And that's something we have to work from.
Do you like the Representative Mason, Senator Wirt's bill to take it to 1010, or would you take it higher, Austin?
I think 1010 is the first step. I think that's what you have to do, and then hopefully, maybe eventually, we can peg it to inflation. But I think we have to, and also on the way to 1010, we have to go there incrementally so that we kind of give businesses a chance to ease into it. But I think that's going to be a bonus for our entire economy. Something like 600,000 people would get a raise, and it's estimated that about $640 million would be reinvested into the economy from people earning these wages. They're not sending them to go skiing in Switzerland or sending their dollars to the Cayman Islands. They're spending them in their communities at the corner businesses.
When you knock on the doors asking for people's votes, where do our public schools rank in terms of what issues they bring to you?
It's crucial. I mean, that's another one of the major issues that folks bring up. They're concerned about the future of their schools. Funding is just drying up. We have a thin stream going from the state to school districts already, and we're fragmenting that stream with voucher schools, with unfunded mandates, and their resources just get thinner and thinner, and it's harder for them to make ends meet. And so we have to work to not only provide greater funding, provide the tools at the local level for school districts to increase revenues to make ends meet. And I think you also have to at least make sure the cap stays on the voucher experiment.
The 1,000
yes.
enrollment cap outside the city of Milwaukee. And
yeah, well, I think we've seen that the voucher experiment hasn't been effective. We can't have the state supporting two school systems. It's ineffective and inefficient, and it's draining resources and hurting our students. And so I think we have to work to close up the voucher school system and just refocus back on public schools. But if we're unable to do that, I think we have to try and wrestle that cap on there, make sure it stays on there, and then at the very, very least, we have to make sure that these voucher schools are held to the same accountability standards as public schools. We're sending them tax dollars that we pay out of we pay to the state. We have the right to know how those are being used, if they are being used in a private school setting.
When voters ask you your position on Common Core standards, how do you answer?
I'm in support of Common Core. I mean, we have two major organizations that don't come together often, coming together to support this. Wisconsin Manufacturing and Commerce, the largest business organization in the state, has expressed their support, as have school administrators. There was I think there was a hearing at the Capitol, and somewhere between 70 and 80 school administrators showed up to show their support from that. And all the teachers that I speak to have said they think that this is an effective standards to guide public education. And I think it would be wasteful and incredibly expensive to try and change that now. It's we're just starting to implement it, and I think we need to kind of step back and remove politics from education. Education is that's our future. That is what has made our democracy strong, is having a strong public education system. And we need to remove politics from that. Politicians shouldn't be meddling with it based on political whims. We should have people that are education professionals that have been trained their whole lives to set those standards, and those standards should be set in our education policies on curriculum and accountability should be kind of set by the facts, the research, and people in the field, not by politicians who are trying to meet a political end.
Let's talk about health care. The federal government told all states, if you expand your MA to include more of the poor, we'll pay the cost, at least for the first few years. Governor Walker, GOP leaders in both houses said thanks, no thanks. Right decision, wrong decision?
Incredibly wrong decision. It is immoral that they turn those dollars down. Those are federal tax. Those are tax dollars that we as Wisconsinites have sent to the federal government, and they're returning them to us. Governor Walker turned this down in the low billions of dollars of aid over the next 10 years for political reasons only. I'd say Iowa and Michigan both have Republican governors as well. They accepted the funds, but the only difference is their governor isn't running for presidency in a Republican primary. So that's why they turned it down, to look better in the primary. But not having those dollars directly led to people suffering because they didn't have that aid and that support. And that's just so wrong.
Leaders in the 15th Senate District, Chamber of Commerce types, want the interstate expanded to 6 lanes. But you and I have seen estimates of a projected $650 million deficit in the next 2-year state budget. Mm-hmm. Do you put some of these major highway projects on hold? Do you raise taxes? How do you make up that gap?
We gotta invest this money in our roads. Our infrastructure is aging, and we are growing as a society. Traffic on I-90 has just grown dramatically, and for safety reasons and for commerce reasons, we have to expand I-90 as soon as possible. And so we have to look at ways to kind of fund that. I think the first way, there's a lot of options. I think the first way that kind of stands out is indexing the gas tax. But we have to repair our roads, because the other option is to just leave these craters in our roadways. And a lot of local municipalities, smaller municipalities, are really struggling because of this shortfall. We have Governor Walker has cut funding for roads 6% over the last 2 budgets, and so that's really put a strain on local resources, and they need to fix these roads. Like I said, the only other option is to just let them go by the wayside, and that isn't an option. So these local governments are being forced to bond, and that just leads to higher costs in the long run. So we have to look at how we're going to raise the resources to finance these on the state level and then increase that state aid.
Well, 2 years ago, a task force recommended raising the gas tax, which hasn't been increased since 2006, and a slight surtax based on the amount of miles traveled. Would you consider those as a way to make up the shortfall in transportation?
I think the first step is looking at the gas tax, and that's something that I think we can look at indexing first, and then we can go from there and look at all the options that are on the table.
Okay. I'm asking all candidates this: your reaction to Judge Crabb's ruling on same-sex marriages?
I applaud it. I applaud it. And Steve, I think we need a new generation of leadership in the Capitol. We need new perspectives. And this is just the perfect example of that. Folks my age are kind of just going, you know, why are we having this big debate? Everyone should be equal. And you can just see that in the poll numbers of support for marriage equality. You can see it, my generation, born after Roe v. Wade, born after the Civil Rights era. We kind of just look at equality as something that everyone deserves. And so, I very much applaud that decision, and I'm happy and excited for the couples that were able to finally wed.
Two candidates for Attorney General say first offense drunken driving should be a crime. Your position?
So I think we have to do whatever we can to make sure that drunken drivers we keep them off the roadway. Wisconsin has a culture of drinking, and that's kind of, we have to work to kind of take that on to change that. And I know Representative Ott has introduced a couple of bills that would first of all criminalize the first offense OWI if they had a blood alcohol level of 0.15 or greater. Mm-hmm. And I think I can support something like that. We need something like that to kind of deter that. And then he also increases the fines and punishments for second offense OWI. And we have to, because the effects of drunken driving are just so awful. These awful accidents and the loss of life that occurs. We have to make sure we're doing whatever we can to deter that from happening.
And then finally, the open Senate seat, your boss retiring, means that there's a three-way primary. Do you want to highlight any differences between you and your two opponents?
Yes, Steve, I think we need a new generation of leadership. We need people that are going to go up there to put their nose to the grindstone. There are doers and there are talkers, and I think we got enough talkers up there. We need some people that are going to be doers and put people first, put constituents before money, put constituents before lobbyists, put constituents before special interests. Too often their voice is just lost up there in the noise, and you see politicians making decisions on where the next campaign donation's coming from. That's so wrong. We can't do that, and we need people that are going to focus on the constituents and work to rise above the dysfunction in Madison. It isn't a productive place. We've got enough headbutting. We don't need any more of that. We've got enough people up there lobbing names back and forth. We don't need any more of that. We don't need any carefully crafted words for political ploys and political pandering. We need people that are going to work to find solutions, because like I mentioned earlier, Steve, people really are still suffering from the recession, and we need to do what we can to help them climb out of that instead of just get caught up in political games in Madison. And that's what I want to do, is work for the people and put them first.
Thank you. Austin Scieszinski of Janesville, the Democratic candidate in the 15th Senate District. Austin, thanks for talking to Wisconsin Eye.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.